Our goal is by the next 10 years, we'll have more young people and women, not just running for office, but in office, in substantive positions of leadership, influencing policy and governance across the continent. Thank you for joining us, and thank you for making the time for being with us. For the next couple of months, we will be running a campaign and program known as Ready to Run. And the goal for Ready to Run is to do one important thing: prepare young people, and in particular young women in East Africa and the continent at large, to run for political office. We want to give them the tools, information, skills, and networks to get them geared up to run for elected office. In particular, our focus for the next couple of months will be on Tanzania, Uganda, and Kenya, because they have elections. Tanzania in particular has elections in October 2025, Uganda has elections in January 2026, and Kenya has elections coming up in August 2027. With me today, having this important conversation around youth and political leadership in uncertain times, are my panelists, who I'm going to introduce one by one. Please, if you have any questions, please include them in the chat box. We will ensure we give some amount of time for young people, for all of us to ask questions. And if we can give you a limited amount of time to actually ask them, that may be possible. But if that isn't, we request that you ask your questions in the chat box, and I promise that you're going to answer them all. Thank you. I'm going to begin by introducing my panelists today. With me today is an incredible array of East African leaders who are doing incredible things in the continent, ensuring that they're shaping conversations about Africa, but in particular about East Africa and their countries. But what's most important about these young East Africans is that they've taken time to shape the political discourse and conversations around running for elections and preparing young Africans to be the political leaders of today. My first panelist is Cynthia Mwangi, who is an alumni of Futurelect, our first East African cohort, and who's going to be running for political office in Kenya. And I'm going to allow her to speak about that in 2027. Cynthia is a multifaceted PR and communications expert and brand strategist, recognized as one of the top women in PR 2024 by PRSK, and a Futurelect alumni who's passionate about fostering youth leadership in the region. She has a proven track record of crafting compelling narratives that resonate with diverse audiences. And in particular, she has over 15 years of experience spanning broadcast journalism, inbound marketing, and strategic communications. Next is Frederick Fusi from Tanzania, who's a managing partner of ChangeLab Consulting. Frederick Fusi serves as a managing director and partner of ChangeLab Consulting, a firm that focuses on consulting services on business development, advisory, management, and communications. Frederick Fusi is also an advisory member of the Futurelect East Africa. Most importantly, he was recently a senior program officer of the International Republican Institute between 2020 and 25, where he was responsible for strategic implementation of USAID's Let's Participate Together project, which was executed across East Africa. He has extensive experience in working with members of parliament and members of local government in strengthening democracies, but also strengthening their capacities and capabilities of overseeing their electoral mandate. With me as well on our panel is Bina Maseno, who hails from Kenya. Bina is an experienced gender governance and development specialist, skilled in gender inclusivity and mainstreaming in political and governance processes, program management, young women and grassroots women leadership, as well as advocating for the end of gender-based violence. She's a founder and executive director of Badili Africa. One of my favorite things about Bina is Bina vied for the member of County Assembly office during the 2013 elections, and she was 22 years old at the time. So she has extensive experience about what it is for a young person to put their hat in the ring. Finally, we are joined by Jacob Eyeru, the chairperson of the National Youth Council of Uganda and the president of Great Lakes Region Youth Forum. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for joining me. I'm excited to be having this conversation. I'm going to begin with you, Dina. What was it like running for elections? You are young, you are fresh, 22 years old. What made you want to throw your hat in the ring?
Thank you so much. Am I audible? I hope I don't have like a bit of echo. Is it okay?
You're fantastic.
Fantastic. Thank you for the introduction. I'm so excited to be here, not only to contribute to this conversation, but also to listen in and to learn from not only the fellow panelists as well, but all the participants who are on this call. I also really love the work that Futurelect does. I think I was telling Maseke earlier on, oh my goodness, if there's someone when you meet, the first thing they're asking you is, are you running for office? And why are you not running for office? Is Natasha. Like, where that's her greeting nowadays to all the women and young men she's meeting. Why are you not running for office? Me, I'm going to support you. I'm coming to your region, you know. I don't know how many guys are going to vote for Natasha because Cynthia is running. If I happen to run, another person is running, you only have one vote, but you want to register as a voter in all our wards. So I think there's a lot of work to do there. But I just want to say that I like identifying as an active citizen, and also I have been frustrated as an active citizen for a very long time. And I think for me, it began when I was, I think, 17. I think when I became very active in community organizing. Immediately I finished Form 4. You know, when you finish Form 4, you're at home, you're waiting to join campus. So like, you don't even know where you're gonna spend your time. And half the time, if your parents don't have resources, you're probably just at home half the time. And I think for me, getting to see firsthand how the lack of basic needs, and then second, I think was getting to visit my friends. You know, we grew up in Kayole. It's one of the informal settlements in Nairobi. And for a long time, I too believed that people don't have water running in their taps because water used to come only on Thursdays. And you see, it's so easy to be socialized that's how things are across the country because that is what you've grown up seeing in your own home, in your own neighborhood, you know. So you've grown up looking at basic needs as a privilege. On me how the decision made by our political leaders, the people who are going to bear the disproportionate consequence of those. The average age of a politician in the African continent is 63. The average age of a young person in the African continent is 19.2. So that is 20. That's the average age. If you look at that difference, it's 40. So if a 63-year-old is making decisions about whether it is climate change, or whether it's access to justice, it means as a 20-year-old, you have many more years to live with the consequences of those decisions. And that for me, also recognizing the role of my member of county assembly, how powerful that role is, because they are the people who are able to aggregate the needs at the ward level, then they are able to legislate on those needs at the county assembly. Also recognizing how important the role of member of parliament is. That was a big motivation for me to throw myself in the ring, to be part of the decision makers, to be part of the individuals who are making decisions that are affecting the vast majority of the people living in my community. But then briefly, Natasha, I think it's one thing to decide to run for office. Then it's another thing to face it off at the ring. And I think things become very hot once you have been cleared after nominations. I lost in one of the political parties' nomination. Then I went and got a certificate from Kenya National Congress. The party leader was, the presidential candidate was Honorable Peter Kenneth at the time. And that's the party that I went to the ballot with till the very end. And I don't even think there's enough training that can prepare you for what you face, Natasha. I don't think there's enough training. I don't think you're prepared for the violence you're going to face. I don't think you're prepared for conversations on how to hire goons who are going to protect you. And you're like, oh my goodness, why do I even need to be protected this much? I'm only running for an MCA position. I think the stereotypes, the ageism in the space, one of the tough electorates for me to navigate was the senior people in the community, the landlords, half the time you'd just walk in a room or where they have been gathered for you to talk to them. And just the way they look at you, I remember one time one of them was saying, you're literally my last born, because my last born is 23 and you're about to turn 23 and you want to represent me. This was a meeting actually that had been put together for landlords in the community. And I think at that particular time, everyone is waiting to hear what you're going to say. And then they have been hearing you talk about your agenda for young people, your agenda for women. Now, these are senior citizens. Now they're actually questioning you. We've been hearing you talking about young people, talking about women. But this community is just not made up of women and youth. This community is made up of all of us. Even us senior citizens are in this community. What is your agenda? So don't tell us about youth today. Don't tell us about women today. Tell us your plan for senior citizens of this community, of this country. And you realize you really have to think ahead. You have to strategize ahead. It means you must have a very strong think tank as well. I always say you are as strong or as weak as your think tank and your campaign team. And that is why I have always been very keen in terms of how we do political investments, by looking at it in a 360 view, not just focusing on the candidate, but focusing on the surrounding of a candidate, because a candidate is an institution. It's not an individual when they're running for office. They become an institution because they're made up of their mobilizers, security, think tanks. There's so much that goes on to make someone succeed, and that could be your weakest link. Allow me to pause at that, and I'm happy to give more perspective in terms of how I did navigate some of those challenges, but it's to encourage us that we need to engage.
Absolutely. Bina, anybody listening, particularly a young person wanting to run, may have had a moment of fear when you said a politician is an institution, because they're like, I don't even have the money to be an individual, let alone an institution. It sounds like a person needs serious machinery. And going by the situation where we have a majority of young people unemployed, does it then mean that this is a pipe dream? And I'm going to direct that question now before I come back to you, Bina, because you've raised some pertinent issues. And I also want to talk about the documentary that you've done, which is incredible. And we have to talk about other people watching it and how we can get more people to watch it. But Fusi, we have Tanzania's election coming up. You've had over 5 years of experience training members of parliament and people working in this particular space. Is it too high a hill for young people to climb and say that we are expecting young people to run, but the obstacles are too many for them to overcome?
Thank you very much, Natasha, for this opportunity to speak on this panel. And as far as the question is concerned, you earlier mentioned about youth unemployment, and I want to reiterate here again that youth unemployment is a great challenge across the globe. And the young people are the great and biggest constituency and a big, powerful political force which can be utilized to turn the tables upside down in a positive manner, and being able to run for political and public office and use that opportunity of being in public office to make changes. So this year, for instance, and I think last year and the last 5 years, I spent a quite good time of my time to train aspirants, to train young people to become leaders in public office. And I'm very happy to inform you that the internal primaries for the ruling party has begun in our country for the election, which is geared to take place in October this year. And I'm very much glad to see a big number of the young people that I trained have stepped further to collect their nomination forms in their party primaries. And the deadline was yesterday at 4 p.m. So out of at least 4,000 people who collected nomination forms across the country for the ruling party for the position of member of parliament and councillors, we have more than 70% who are young people who stood out to go and collect the nomination forms from their political parties. And I have a list of more than 30 young people that I've trained who have stepped out to take the nomination forms. So this gives me a good indication that coming the general election, we'll be having quite a good number of young people vying in as candidates. And I hope if we have them as candidates, we also expect the same from the other political parties as well. And I think what is more important to notice on this is not about the number of young people who are going to represent others into the decision-making bodies. It is about the quality of the agenda. It's about the quality of the issues that they are representing. So if you read the World Bank's report of the year 2024 on issues of workforce, it says when it reaches 10 years to come from now, in 2035, okay, there will be 1.2 billion young people across the globe who will be ready to enter the job market. And out of them, only 420 million would be able to get employed maybe in formal sector. So there is a big question here about how the constituency of young people can utilize their powerful political tool of being a great constituency of young people who are voters, but young people who are contesting in elections, how they can be able to unify their voices, come together, have a common agenda of ending unemployment, for instance, in the future. Because one of the repercussions of not having the young people having employment is insecurity. And that's why you can see, I don't want to be judgmental here, you can see when you're having demonstrations, for instance, in Nairobi or anywhere, you would see some other people are abusing the political right of contesting, of protesting, and turn to be goons and going to rob in shops and everything. That is an indication of poverty and is an indication of lack of employment opportunities for young people. So this is the big question that the young people themselves have to answer this big question. If you hold a public office, what are the efforts among other items or among other agenda, be it education, be it health, be it rural infrastructures, be it being agriculture, being it climate change, whatever. But are we able to create enough job opportunities for young people across the African continent, across the East African region, that we can be able to come out and say, we created these jobs, young people are now able to have livelihood, so that we can reduce insecurity in the future. So I want to urge all the young people on this platform, on this webinar, if you want to run for public office, you need to have a very clear vision of who you want to be and what is the contribution that you want to make in your community and in your society and your political party and the government that you want to run. So to say a few, Natasha, yes, young people are a great constituency, and how can we utilize this great constituency to work for youth? So a great constituency working for the young peoples themselves. And and you know the age of young people. If you're young people, you're not gonna be a young people forever. You reach a time where you'll be an adult.
Yeah.
You'll have responsibilities. Perhaps you'll get married. So you have really to think about how the future would look like from the beginning, and who do we want to put as our leaders in public office when we are going to run for elections. So this is among the topic that I'm expecting the young people that have been training, who will be vying for leadership positions in the coming elections. They'll be putting a strong platform for their political campaigning, to campaign for young people and for the agendas of young people, so that when they get elected, they are able to solve all these issues altogether.
Thank you, Fusi. I want to put you on the spot. I'm going to ignore the protest comment around Kenya for now. You said you're diving headfirst And I'm saying, let's give it a minute, because that question will come up a bit later. But you spoke about young people, 7,000, if I'm not wrong, going to get political nomination papers. And Bina made a comment in reference to that. It's one thing to apply for party nomination, it's another thing to actually get it. Those are two different things. So, how do we ensure that those who actually apply have chances and it translates to them actually being the ticket bearer for their political parties, be it Chadema, be it CCM? How can we ensure that they don't just apply,
Okay,
but
that's
they
a very good
actually
question.
are picked and chosen?
That's a very good question. A few moments ago, I had a chat with one of the aspirant who wants to run for the special seats in parliament. And she was reaching out, getting to understand how she can be able to navigate the party primaries. Now the process, there will be only 400 plus seats, but those people who have gone out to seek the nominations are 4,000. So you see, it is like only 10% of those who have gone out to take the nominations forms will be nominated. So what we are anticipating and what we are telling them is you need to be able to utilize the network of the people that you are having in your political party. And another question which was raised by some of the previous cohort of future electees, do you think you have a political father figure, or you have a political godfather who would be able to speak on your behalf on nomination meetings? In nomination meetings, you don't have enough young people, but even if you're having enough young people in nomination meetings, you're having diverse interest. How are you able to reach out to the members of nominations to be able to get nominated? Are you able to build enough political firepower, and have you prepared yourself? Because the party primaries members are going to are going to elect the nominees for the party at grassroots levels, at different party branches. Have you reached out to all these party branches? Did you speak to these people? Do they really know whether you are really running for public office? So these has been the areas that we have navigated with a few moments ago. I had a chat of advising one of my mentee who is running for public office through the nomination of representing the constituents of non-governmental organization, because in the ruling party they have a very good structure of having diverse types of groups represented for special seats. So she's running for special seat, and she needed to get some guidance on how she can be able to amass votes during all this process and get nominated, you see. So this has been the advice that we have been providing, but this advice is context related to Tanzania. I know perhaps maybe it may not be similar to how Kenya is, but I think the principles are the same. You need to have a network of people at the grassroots. You need to have people who can speak to you, who can speak on your behalf during the nomination process, because they have to review your biography. They have to assess your party loyalist, whether you're party loyalist or not. They have to assess how long have you been contributing to build a political party, and do you really understand the party ideology of this party? So they want to know whether have you participated, have you been a leader before in the political party? If not a leader, have you been participating in conferences of this party? So all these are some dynamics that the young people, and these are principles which cut across in the continent, I think, and I think globally, people want to know whether you really understand the party ideology, you know issues, and whether you represent the constituency that you want to vie for. So these are some of the advices that I've been providing recently.
Thank you, Fusi. I'm going to circle back to you. But first, Cynthia, we've had several conversations, and particularly because every time I speak to professionals about getting into politics, they give me a look like, how dare you suggest that to me? I've built such a formidable career, and you want me to become, because politics is assumed to be dirty. Here you are, a journalist and PR specialist with over 15 years experience in print media. What's making you change and say, you know what, public service may be for me? How is that making you feel? What are your thoughts? What are the conversations you've been having with friends and family?
Thank you very much, Natasha, for having me. And it's great to be on this panel today with people that I have interacted with before. It's quite incredible. So I am absolutely honored. Well, as you've said, we've had this conversation a couple of times. And I think at the very end, towards the graduation, after I think I fully said that I want to run, I think it took you aback for a minute as well. For the reasons that Bina has given. It's not just because you happen to be a young person, you're also in corporate, right? There's certain ways that you are perceived. And you have to start thinking about what will that look like for me? And that means if you're in corporate, it's you walking away from your job, maybe a year, 2 years before the actual election because you have to campaign. So that means you either resign or if you're in a good space, you can take a leave of absence for the next 2 years. But for the most of us, we don't have that luxury. It's you have to resign. That means what you consider a monthly income is gone. That's it. And as Bina said, you require not a war chest, but you require some backing for you to be able to run. However, for me, I'd have to say, eventually something has got to give. And I think for Kenya, that's ideally where we are. Something has got to give. And the push to want better, the need to want better, and the question of in the Kenyan Kiswahili context, we say kama sio mimi nani basi. If it's not me, then who else? If nobody else is having that burden, if nobody else is having the call, if nobody feels the need to want to do better for the nation, to do better for the continent, then what else? So for me, that is what has been pushing me. And I remember when I was applying for Futurelect, that was what was driving me. I sat there and I was like, I don't understand why I can't. What is this that's stopping me from running for any position across the board? I can be an MCA, I can be an MP, I can run for women rep, governor. Nothing says I can't. However, I have to be well equipped for this position. I have to be able to see what is coming at me. We're not doing this blindly. You have to evaluate and see, okay, is it worth it? Am I able to look at the goal and then work backwards? What will it take for me to run? I love that Frederick has also mentioned that you have to be a person who is of good quality. You're not running to make yourself rich. You're running because it's the burden of the nation. It's how serious you take leadership. And you're not doing it for vibes. And we know a lot of young people who want to drive in big cars as they've seen history itself. You want to be dishing out money in chunks and walking around as if you can make any decision you want. It's knowing that as long as a certain road in Kisumu is sorted, somewhere in Kiriaini, that road is sorted, then you know you're fine as an entire nation. Nobody is requiring any goons to come and stop anything because the nation is good. Everything is working the way it needs to. And that was one of the questions we were having when we were having our conversations at Futurelect. If systems worked, then what would be our next issue? We looked at countries in abroad, especially the European countries. Systems work. And truth be told, they work much better than what we have here. If healthcare worked, if infrastructure worked, if all these things worked, then what would that look for Africa? What would that look like for East Africa? What would that look like for Kenya? Would we have the same problems? Maybe not. And do we have enough people to say, maybe we should give it a try? Maybe we should think about making things work better for us. Once we have that, then you really have nothing to worry about. So as far as running and why, that's why. Do we have fears? Oh my God, we have so many fears. I love that Bina keeps going, yes, we have fears. We have so many fears.
What are the two things that scare you right now? You said you're right. What are the two things that are keeping you up at night?
For me, one would have to be the finances. We can't deny that's a fact. It is a fact. However, I am such an optimist because judging from the last election, we had the likes of Toto in the Rift Valley who may not have had a war chest, but they literally almost walked in. And I say that because it's very possible for one to rise and ride a certain wave. And in 2027, there's a wave. And if you want to run as a young person in Kenya, that's the wave you go on. Because if you see an opportunity and there is an opportunity for change, you go with it. As long as you articulate what you need to articulate very clearly and they can see you are a person of good standing, I think Kenya and the young people in Kenya, who I believe will be the ones making the decision then, are ready for change. At this point, we can see that opportunity. So finances may keep me at night, but I also see the wave, and it's possible. The other thing would have to be security. You, at the end of the day, I am a young woman. I have so many other ways. I can only keep myself safe in so many ways, to be honest, short of literally almost sleeping at DOD just to make sure I'm safe. So security for me is such a big thing because you don't want to say I am running for this position. And the person who is currently holding that position is looking at you like, what makes you think I'm leaving? Best believe I'll take care of that, and I don't want to be taken care of, bruv. So those are the dynamics for me, and I imagine for a lot more people, those are the things that they're concerned about and they're worried about.
Thank you, Cynthia. Those are pertinent questions and things that we need to unpack. And I'm hoping by the end of this webinar, we'll have some ideas of how we can navigate not just finances, but campaigning, what campaigns look like, what security online and offline, particularly for women in marginalized communities. Those are some of the things that we hope to answer by the end of this webinar. We are also joined by Jacob Eyeru, who is fashionably late. I'm going to creep and say in typical government style. Mr. Eyeru, how are you, sir? Good to have you and good to for you to join us. Mr. Jacob Eyeru, as mentioned, is a chairperson of the National Youth Council in Uganda. Jacob, I'm going to put you on the spot, not because you are late, because you're my friend, and ask, particularly for young people. There are many questions around young people affiliating themselves with ruling parties or political parties and politicians of the day. You've made the bold choice of running for parliament in January with the ruling or under the ruling party. What reception have you had? Are there any questions, particularly in the context of Kenya? You would be termed a traitor and someone who doesn't have the best interests of young people at heart. How have you navigated that space and those questions in Uganda?
Hello, Natasha, and thank you, everyone. Am I audible enough?
100%.
All right, thank you. My apologies, first of all, for coming late. It's a very political time, and I was actually at the nomination grounds trying to complete a couple of processes, so I delayed to get to my spot for this meeting. I do not want to speak so much about what is in Nairobi and Kenya because it depends on who's speaking to know what a traitor looks like. I saw a couple of photos with the president and young people, and I think they are going to get their own fair part of the bashing. But in Uganda, we always say that as long as you have the rural population, don't mind the smartphones. So it's part of understanding. But I think, let me start it here. If you're going into politics as a young person, you need to accept what politics is and how it is run in your area of interest. If you intend to run for member of parliament, even in Kenya, you have to configure what population is your voting population. Is it an urban population? Is it a rural population? Is it a bit of a good mix of the two? If it's a fine mix of the two, then you have more problems. But if it's clearly distinct, you would apply yourselves to the tools that enable that population to vote in a particular direction. When we are in Kampala or Nairobi or Dar es Salaam, it's very easy to think that the politics that you are seeing on the television or reporting on Twitter. I watch a lot of what's going on in Nairobi.
We may have lost
Hello,
Jake.
can you see me?
Yes, yeah, now we have you back.
Okay. So I was just saying that I watch a lot of what's going on in Nairobi, and you can see a lot of political jargon with particular qualities of crowd. But there are also places where there's actually no street for a crowd to gather. It's just homestays for thousands and thousands of meters and hundreds of kilometers. And in those places, the things that matter to them might not be what's on Twitter. It might be a more localized context that if you do not pay attention to, you would be mistaken to Sema one time and you think it's going to work. So that's exactly how politics is. It's about context specific to the local area and the voting population. With regard to affiliation, I'm going to give you a good example. One thing that's for certain is that politics is influenced by airwave narrative. In other words, what people are saying generally influences what people do locally, either for good or for bad. But the other thing you must understand is that political parties exist to take power and to keep that power. Political parties cannot legislate themselves, cannot negotiate themselves, cannot play political interests that eat them out of their own political advantage. So, in that regard, you can be sure that a political party that is growing and popular among the people is noticing that growth and is creating a plan for them. And that plan is something that they believe they would have advantage over. So, young people need to weigh so many things when they're making choices to move forward. I have seen very many young people across the continent of Africa who are very brilliant friends, and they are passionate and they're articulate, and they know what they're talking about. They know their stuff. They are your 100%, you're already kind of leader. Then they go out there and you hear, oh, I'm running independent, but I'm running independent against some old guy. Our constituency is so young. I'm sure I'm going to identify with the young people and win. And then they return only 15% of the ballot. That's not to say that they didn't have a good strategy. It's just that their strategy was not strong enough to beat the context that they perceived to be the working context. So that for me is very important. And in rural areas, for example, it's almost impossible for you to have a security control measure if the state has interest in destabilizing or controlling the outcome. Let me give you an example. If someone is running in Turkana, for example, in Turkana, it doesn't matter what's happening in Nairobi, it will not affect what's happening in Turkana on ground. The gentleman who is in charge of the police in one of the counties, the gentleman who is in charge of polling, the gentleman who is in charge of security and intelligence, those are the most important people. What they will do by the time you report and get to social media and it has response, the elections have been declared and you've lost. So you need to accept the context there and say, is it better for me to choose a political party that can save me from having to invest alone, or you can do it on your own? So those are the questions that are important. So whether you run in the ruling political party or you run in the opposition, as long as you're in politics, you will get backlash. It's just where you are running from that determines the type of backlash. Thank you.
Thank you, Jacob. I have one or two follow-up questions. You've said that the political party matters and context matters, which I think is brilliant and quite relevant because oftentimes, particularly, we assume that because we are on a social platform, we are in an echo chamber, so everyone thinks like us. Then we get shocks that they don't. But particularly for political parties, there are young people on this call who are asking, what if I don't align with a political party? Must I betray myself and my values to sort of run with the only political party that exists? Or are there ways that young people can navigate? Let's even say being an independent candidate for them to win. Is it a possibility? Yes, we do know that it is. What are the things that they could do differently, even if they don't win, but just to make a mark in their constituencies?
Thanks. I think for me, that's the crux of the matter. Political party or not, there are critical elements of candidature in politics that give advantage and edge over competition. And those must never be lost on young people. In fact, our young people and this generation have an edge in terms of the tools available to them to match whatever else is being thrown at them in the constituency. In reality, the biggest disadvantage young people have in running for politics is their capacity economically. If they are going to be able to match what whoever the competition is, political party or not, is throwing at them. If a young person can get an answer for the economic question as a candidate, they have got 80% of the answers they need. And that needs to be seen in terms of the general resource need. Either you weaponize the presence of too many resources by someone, or you mobilize around people not having resources, and therefore we know our problems, and we are very much the same kind of people. Send one of your own. That kind of branding is important, and consistency of the branding is very important. Where a young person says, look, we have a political party here that I don't believe in, but unfortunately I am challenging and I'm running in Eldoret or somewhere in the Rift Valley. That young person has to create a context separate from what would actually be antagonistic to what the people want. You do not have to bash a political party to have your ideas seen as the best. You do not have to even align to a political party to do that. You can use strengths around alternative mobilization strategies, because political parties mobilize around their top candidate, the president. And so everyone that's at the grassroots is equipped in some financial sense to mobilize for the president, so to speak. In your own regard, you could say things that should be localized one side and things that are national the other side. As a young person, if you don't agree with the popular presidential candidate in an area, it's
You're back now.
okay. Thank you. So I was saying, as a young person, there are wars you do not want to take at a local context. You need to draw the parameters of war very clearly for you, so you steer clear of what invites even a bigger play from political parties. If a political party feels like your messaging is not directed at the political party or their presidential candidate, they may not enter the fray in the manner they would if it was the otherwise. The other thing is you need to, as a young person, understand that your biggest strength will always be with fellow young people. The young people that play football, the young people that are out and about for their walks, and the young people who do not have a lot to lose in whoever has lost the election. So they'll be available to say, okay, you're as young as we are. I think let's put up a show. Why don't we send these big people away from here? Mobilizing generation-wise can substitute mobilizing party-wise. If you say, for example, I'm sorry, I'm using a lot of Kenyan content because I know there are many Kenyans on this meeting. But let me just throw it around. Many of our candidatures within the region are well above 50. So if you're running at 24, 25, first you are running from the lower end of the political pyramid.
Okay. We lost you.
I'm
Sorry.
so sorry. I keep getting sorry. I keep getting local phone calls. So that's what I was saying. That you could present a generational dissection of your community to say how many are women, how many are young people, and you ride on things that identify across generations and do not have color, whether they be yellow or they be blue, ODM or UDA would not matter. What matters is we are women and these are our issues and we see that you know them. We are young people and these are our issues and we see that you know them. to demonstrate that you don't have to be in government, in the ruling party, to work with government might be the next thing that you have to address. In that regard, you need to be clear in your message. Your messaging has to come out strong on how exactly your maneuvers are going to remove the risk factors of taking a one-man army to face a parliament where there are so many people on either side and the lines are finely drawn. I think that's the middle ground I can advise for. Thank you.
I love it. I take home 2 points that are very important. You have to look for alternative mobilizing strategies, and you have to identify the needs and issues affecting your constituency and mobilize around that. I think those are quite critical things that we can take home, Jacob. And I'm going to circle back a bit later and ask around your current campaign, what that looks like and what that feels like for you and your family. But Bina, I want to come back to you. You published a documentary last year. I think it's one of the most significant documentaries for the continent around women grassroots mobilizers. But particularly, I want to address 2 things. One, and Cynthia mentioned it, is one, the invisibility around women, particularly women at the grassroots level. They're the ones politicians go to when they want to campaign. But rarely do we see them as human beings, and rarely do we ever support them when they want to run. But 2, around safety, particularly in that documentary and in the conversations we've had separately, there's extreme violence that women face, sexual gendered violence on the campaign trail that could make many women say they don't want to run. It's too dangerous. In fact, often I say when someone I love tells me they're running, the first thing is not joy, it's panic. And how do we navigate that? One, as people who support our friends and loved ones, but also as people who are thinking around running. How do we navigate safety, but also how do we ensure that women who are grassroots mobilizers also become the leaders that we need?
Thank you so much. I was nodding when Cynthia was talking about the 2 biggest issues that are worrying her when she thinks about her candidacy. And she said finances, which is true. I think Mzalendo did publish a study in terms of how much it costs to run for political office. And I remember in that study, the minimum amount one needed to run for member of county assembly was 5 million. That is what is it? That is that 50,000 USD, and also to run for MP, you needed 20 million. I mean, when you think about those figures, in a country where we have about 800,000 young people graduating from learning institutions annually, and the market can only accommodate 50 people, it's mind-boggling when you just think about where am I going to get that amount of money to even start campaigning. When you think about how much it costs to even pay for your party ticket. I mean, if today, Cynthia, I don't know which position you're going to be running for, but if you want to run for governor, for instance, you need to pay $500,000 to secure the party ticket to allow you to be on the nomination, to participate in the nomination process. For an MP, you need about 250,000 to be able to secure the nomination certificate. So what does that mean when it comes to young people who sometimes have served the political party for so long, but then financial muscle, people come in with the financial muscle, keep on edging them out of the space, yet you've given your time. And I always say time is money. But then when it comes to making political decisions, things are always changing last minute. I'm saying that to say that from where I stand, number one is we have to look at our numbers as political capital. You're not going to have all that money for someone who's been robbing this country dry, someone who, first of all, acquired land from the Moi regime 20 years ago.
Allegedly, thank you.
Allegedly, no, but we know, like allegedly. But then you see, those guys, someone already has a shamba, for instance. Let me give an example. Someone has a shamba in Karen. Me, my 1 acre in Kamulu, even if I sell it today, I can't even make a quarter as much as someone selling an eighth in Karen. Man, I'm selling my 5 acres in Ruai. You see what I mean? Someone already is making the amount I'm gonna make from just an eighth. You know, Cynthia maybe understands. Maybe Cynthia has Shamba in Karen. But what am I trying to say? I'm giving that example to say that we have to look at our numbers as young people, as political capital, as mileage. We have to organize creatively. We have to tap into the informal spaces of organizing. I think, Natasha, you've interacted with our work at Badili to some extent. I mean, we work with very unconventional community influencers, very unconventional leaders. We are raising political leaders from the salon space. We work with leaders in the salon. We realized women spend quite a huge amount of time at the salon. You're there, you're spending like, this took me 5 hours, imagine. And 5 hours, I'm just listening to gossip. We began a series called Transformative Gossip. We're like, we're not gonna stop you from gossiping, but we need to shape this gossip to help push the agenda we want to see in this country forward. We have chamas. Even in Tanzania, we have, I don't know what, Vikoba. I think in Tanzania, they call them Vikoba. In Uganda, they call them Ebibina or something. In Kenya is chamas. Those groups become political networks during election. We have worked with some of the top chama leaders who were able to be featured in that particular documentary as political mobilizer. As a young woman on this platform, how many chamas are you in? Right now, you know, you're considering running for office. How many chama groups are you in? Cynthia, how many chama groups are you in, for instance? How many? Not the one for traveling to Greece. Those ones don't vote. No. Those ones don't vote, by the way. They don't. First of all, they'll travel in August. So they won't even be there in your political rally, okay? So I mean, the ones, the ones in the community, not the ones who are planning their travel right now between July and then they'll come back in September, yeah? So, Natasha, we were able to speak to campaign leaders. Majority of them belong to these Vikobas, to these chamas, and we're able to sit down with them and ask them, what does it take to campaign for a politician? And that's when we discovered that, number one, when it comes to political participation, many a times we look at it from running for office and voting, but we forget there's so many players in between. The person who's going to go to even negotiate and tell a party leader, here, someone is paying this much, please give them the certificate. How are we holding them accountable when it comes to the outcome of an election? You see, when it comes to violence, before you face violence as a candidate, your mobilizers, your campaigners face it before you. In fact, by the time violence is being meted on them, they've already called you and told you things are very tough. Don't show up. And even if you're being attacked while you're campaigning, most of the candidates get, they get evacuated, but the mobilizers and the campaigners remain in the community. People know where the mobilizers stay. So at the end of the day, if you're mobilizing, especially for a candidate who belongs to a political party that is not popular in that particular region, so you find as a mobilizer, you're targeted, you know? And I think we had one case that was very sad for me, for one of the powerful mobilizer that I really, really respect, because she's campaigned for very serious politicians, and she's been able to brave it when it comes to organizing and getting the numbers for these politicians. And I remember she decided to party hope from one party to another. You know, the way you think, as a mobilizer, I can just decide who I want to vote for. And then the party that she decided to go support is not very popular in that community. It's like, let's say, just giving the Kenyan context, is like if you're campaigning for UDA in Kisumu, or you're campaigning for ODM in Rift Valley, okay? So already you're branded. So the people in that community felt like she has really betrayed the cause of that party. And as you know, the top 3 political parties in this country, they have loyalists, yeah? And I think also people forget we have 90 political parties, you know? But let's talk about the top 3. They have loyalists. And because she party hoped, they waited for the day she's going to be campaigning for the leader who was coming to just tour her region. And the supporters for the party that she abandoned thought of ways they can harm her, because they knew once the other party leader is going to be in her region, one of the things is security will be very tight. So you can't come in with a panga, you can't come in with stones, you can't come in with a knife. And they bought a razor blade because it's so hard for people to search your bag for a razor blade. You can walk with a razor blade like this. And the idea was to disfigure her face so she doesn't have to campaign for that leader. And they were able to pass through with the razor blade because anytime you walk anywhere, they frisk you for whether it's guns, stones, everything. But never in my life had I thought that a razor blade could be a political weapon that someone just carries like this and I walk past them and I don't realize they have a razor blade and they want to disfigure my face. While she missed it, it did cut the woman who was behind her at the back, yeah? But then when we were having a conversation with this mobilizer, one of the evenings, one of our lowest moments was the fact that as a mobilizer, she was like, you know, even if I died today, it would have been collateral damage. The politicians will get a campaigner the next day. Jacob will tell you, you died today. Within 1 hour, they've already figured out who's going to replace you, who's the next campaigner. And then the saddest thing was, she said, even political parties do not even put out a statement that today we lost one of our chief campaigners, but they'll put out a statement if their candidate is taken out, you know, and they'll make noise how the other party sent people or they disrupted, but majority of the people who die are collateral damage. And I think the documentary chose to humanize the political process and say it's just not about the candidates and the voters. There are so many people who carry the political parties on their shoulders, and majority of them are women. They're the ones who keep on knocking doors, mobilizing people to join political parties, rallying the voters to come and participate during the nomination process. And we need to map out every level of the political ecosystem and invest in every level of the political ecosystem, if at all we are to see the outcomes that we want to see. Two things. That's in terms of taking care of how we can look at the violence that faces not only candidates, but politically active players. Yeah. And number two, how do we hold parties accountable when it comes to whether it's the harassment people face within their own political parties? Because also, as we know, many political parties do not even have some, you know, like sexual harassment policies, for instance. So even when you're harassed within the political party itself, with someone you belong with within the political party, what are the reporting mechanisms? You know, what are the actions that the party is going to take? So how then do we look internally to strengthen that, so that we also ensure that people are confident enough to report about these cases? Three is to ensure that even the mobilizers and your supporters are very well equipped with information. One of the things that I've seen with the mobilizers that we work with, the political mobilizers, is sometimes they mobilize for you because of the political promise you've made, which does not match the mandate of the elective office you're seeking. So someone is going to say, oh, I am mobilizing support for the senator because the senator has promised me 10 bursaries for my children. Does that mandate rest with the senator? Do you understand the role of the senator? Do you understand the role of an MCA? Do you understand the role of an MP? You see, so sometimes we're also mobilizing for individuals and we're not able to have a quality conversation because we do not even understand the mandate of their office to even ask them, the promises you're making are beyond the mandate of your elective office. How are you going to fulfill this? Because from where we stand, we understand that an MP is supposed to legislate. An MP is not supposed to do that. The road you're speaking about is a national, is a mandate of the national government and not even the county government. So how are you going to fix that road? Because you're an MCA, how are you going to fix that road? So I think it's very important that we continue equipping people at the community and equipping them and tapping into the unconventional spaces to build the critical mass that we need. But also you have to equip yourself with information. You see, as a candidate, you have to be ahead. You have to be ahead of the game because you're going to be leading your think tank. You're going to be leading your, guiding the strategy team that you've put together. And half the time, if you're having professionals, you can't just be like, oh, it's our time. You just cannot use age as the reason why you want to be supported. If Natasha is coming on board, if Cynthia is coming on board, Frederick is coming on board, what role do you want them to play in your campaign, as opposed to saying, Natasha, you have to come and vote for me? She doesn't have to vote for you. She doesn't have to. but there are many other roles that she can play. So sometimes I feel that we don't also equip ourselves enough. We don't study political systems. We don't study who is determined to keep the rotten status quo the way it is. Because even a bad road in your community, there's someone who's determined to keep it so. That is why they keep on carpeting just a small portion, because they know how money flows. They know where they can get the money to keep on recarpeting the same road. So sometimes when you see issues in your community, there is someone who is determined to keep things as they are. And Natasha, I want to sign out with this. Understand your why. If you don't understand your why, people will pull you in different directions. I remember one of my spiritual mentors, when I was running for office, they sat me down and they said, listen, Bina, I want to understand where you're running for office first before we even support you. And one of the profound scriptures they shared during that time, and all religions respected on this call, was 1 Samuel 22. And it talks about when David left Gath and escaped to Adullam. And that verse says that the people who were discontented, who were in debt, who were hopeless, went to David in Adullam, and he became their commander. He became their king. And I remember my spiritual mentor at the time asking me, Bina, the people you're going to lead are not rich. This informal settlement of yours, you're not going to lead millionaires. People are hopeless. People are in debt. People are not looking forward to tomorrow. Young people are wondering, why did I, like my mother sold land to come to Nairobi to educate me. I have nowhere else to go. People survive on 1 meal a day, if at all. That is the kind of community. Those are the kind of issues you want to inherit. Do you understand those issues with depth? And how are you going to transform those people? Because when you look at Colossians, it says, and these were the people who went to David while he was in Adullam. They were mighty men. So how are you going to transform these people who are hopeless, who are in debt, and who are discontented to become mighty men and women in this community? So you have to understand your why before you get in the game. Thanks.
I love it. You said some things that are almost similar to Jacob earlier. One around understanding your constituents, understanding how you're going to use, and I want to circle back, and I know I'm using the word circle back quite a bit. I want to just address the issue around mobilizers before we move on to understanding your why, which I think is very important. Why are you running? Are you running because it's popular? Are you running because your friends have told you in a bar that you're the guy or you're the woman of the day? Or are you running because you believe you're going to make a change in your constituency or area? Ina, you've talked about mobilizers and think tank. When you're running, how can you put together? You don't have resources. We've spoken about it earlier. People don't have land to sell. You have little money, you have little resources. How then do you, as a candidate, say, I'm going to put together a think tank, even of people who are volunteering their time? How do you put together that and identify mobilizers? Again, mobilizers need resources, but I also want to believe that there are some who may not need as extreme financing. How do we get mobilizers to be on our team and get a think tank that works for us? And when you say think tank, again, someone may be asking, what do you mean by that?
Thanks for that. So I'll give 2 examples. So number one, for any young person who wants to run for office, I always say you have to ground your leadership. You have to stay rooted in your community. You have to ensure that you understand the lived realities of people like you, and you have to lead from where you are. So I always say, build influence, not just power. How do you build influence? You build influence by how consistent you are with your actions at the community level. You build influence by how you lead authentically. You build influence with how you show empathy. And for me, I think one of the things that helped people also understand that I'm not just in this game, this political game, because it's my time and it's time for young people, is because also people were able to see me, how I used to show up in very small moments. I always tell people, lead from where you are. and don't even wait for a platform. You might not even ever get a platform. You might not even ever trend. You might not even ever have someone pat you on the back while you're leading. One time, Natasha, just to encourage, one time I came back home from, this was actually in campus, when I went back in campus, because I did go back to campus way later when I was 24, because I lost my scholarship the moment I said I'm running for office. The bulk of the guys who were supporting my education felt I wasn't serious. And I think that's what also dipped me into depression at some point. But then later on, I was able to go back to campus. So I did graduate when I was 26. I know I look like a Gen Z, but I like saying I'm a Gen Z alumni because I'm a millennial. But while I was in campus, I remember one time I went back to my bedsitter where I used to stay, and I found like the landlord had put those slips saying that he's going to increase rent by 3,000 shillings. And I remember asking, but he's not even bringing any change. It's not like he's going to repaint the place. Why are you adding 3,000? The tanks are not working. We don't have water every day. It's not like you're even repainting the place to look beautiful. And I went, knocked the door of my neighbor. It was called Seiko. And I said, are you okay with this? Said, I am not okay with it, but I think we need to plan and see whether we can vacate this place. And half the time when you're not comfortable with the rent increase, we feel like we need to vacate. And let me tell you, I told Seiko, we need to go around and figure out if other people are comfortable with this. And we knocked every door, and it was 3 floors, asking guys, are you comfortable? If you're not, please write your name in this foolscap, your name and phone number, your name and phone number. It took like 2.5 hours to do that. And by the time I was able to call the landlord later, I said, we need to see you. And he was like, oh, if you're not comfortable with the rent, Bina, you can actually move. My houses are in high demand because of also where they're located. And I said, no, it's actually just not me wanting to see you. It's everyone. And he didn't believe it. And he said, I'm going to come on Sunday morning at 7 a.m. And because he said, and if you guys are not there at 7 a.m., I'll leave for church. The challenge was Sunday a.m. because young people hung over, like it's just a mess. On Sunday, I woke up and by 6 a.m. I was already knocking people's doors. And if you didn't open your door, I canceled your name out. I said, if you're not opening your door, if you're not coming to this meeting, I'm going to cancel your name out. By 7:15, 90% of us were at the rooftop, and he could not justify why he was increasing rent. And just like that, you've saved people in that building 3,000 shilling every month. In a year, that is 36,000. 3,000 times 12, that is 36,000 that someone would have to cough up from wherever, and especially from our parents, because the bulk of us were students. That was a moment I never even shared on social media. I didn't even know I could share because it was years back, But there are people who are like, oh my God, so I can just take a single issue that is a pain point for me and rally people around it. And I saw someone take up an issue like water and rally people around an issue just like water. And people see, and people remember, people remember the things that you do in the community. People remember how you stood up and spoke fearlessly against an injustice, against someone, whether it's a child who was defiled. People remember how you show up. So that's why I said, build influence. Not just power, and stay rooted. And once you do that, begin selling your vision to women in the community. I remember I used to, first of all, I began with my mom's chama, the Vikoba where my mom goes. I said, Mom, I want to come to your meeting. I want to talk to the women you're with. So first of all, the trusted people around you, which are the spaces that they can open up for you. If you know Cynthia, and Cynthia here works, is a big media personality, how can you ensure that Cynthia can secure an interview for you at the radio station? Then you already have an audience that you would have ordinarily paid for, yeah? Then your messaging is out there. So I was able to meet my mom's Chama people, and then I asked them, how do you do this thing, man? Because I see politicians come into these groups, they ask you, and they're able to tell me, go talk to Mama so-and-so. Mama so-and-so is always approached by many other politicians. Then I was able to go and talk to Mama so-and-so. Also leverage the power of recommendation, because then when someone who's trusted introduces you to another person who's trusted, then that person opens their door for you to come and engage. Then get other professionals. If someone is very good in comms, reach out to them, tell them I'm struggling with branding. Also help me understand the platforms where the people that I want to serve often frequent. Like for me, I never run my community campaigns on Twitter. because the women I serve at the community are on Facebook and WhatsApp groups. So for me, my biggest social media influencers and admin, I always harvest social media admins. If you join me, if you put me in a community group, I already want to know who the admin is, because that admin is going to sometimes ensure they don't approve my message. So I'm like, I need to know the admin of this group, yeah? Because majority of the information that is being forwarded there is information that is affecting people who are within that community. So also understand the platforms where your people are. So you're not there paying people to trend a hashtag on Twitter. And like, I think, Jacob said,
Yes,
that Twitter and the community are totally different. I focus on Facebook because my women be like, did you see this thing on Facebook that Bina posted about? I think it's so important. Are you even in Facebook groups for your own community? Every community has a Facebook group on the social media platform. So also understanding that becomes very important. There are guys who can also move resource for you, but then ensure that you're also accountable. Tell them, this is how much I need. Go to them with a proper budget. Don't just tell them, I think I need this much. Tell them, hey, I need, this is, you've already drawn up a budget. I need this much to go to communication. I need this much to help me move from point A to point B. And I think if I have 10 people who can support and move this amount, that will help me, because every day I travel with 5 people to go and campaign. I need airtime for them. I need food for them. And I also need to ensure they get back home safely. That will cost me this much. Informal security will cost me this much, because I need guys to protect me. Any other time I go to campaign, in case someone wants to attack me, I know there's a team that is with me that is looking out for my safety. So also understand who can move things where, and not go to your friends for everything, because your friends are going to be fatigued. Do you want them to be the voter, to be the mobilizer, to be your social media influencer?
I love it. I take some points with me. The first one is you should not be a stranger in your constituency and area. They must know you. Look for small ways to engage. Don't ignore small and humble beginnings. Strategically point out the people you're going to work with. And I really love what you said, which is similar to Jacob, and I want to come back to Jacob around that, is that know the platforms to use. I didn't know about speaking to admins on WhatsApp. You're giving me some tactics I didn't know about, Bina. I'm going to come back to you about running in 2027. I must put you on the spot. Jacob, you are currently literally on the ground campaigning. Today is a day you are actually getting your documentation. My question, I hear he's dropped off. Apologies for that. We'll wait for him to come back. Sorry, he's on and off. And please forgive him. He's on the campaign trail. It's hot and heavy, and he's making time for us today. So we appreciate that. I want to come to you, Fusi. One of the things we found and data has shown is that 2 in every 5 members of parliament don't know what they're doing once they're elected. There's a question of they've run their campaign, now they're in office, but they don't know. Butwa, wamepigwa, haya, they're meant to do something. How do we ensure that even when people are campaigning, there's a level of understanding, particularly for those voting, as to why they are voting? How do we ensure that people know why and who they are voting for, to ensure that once they're elected, that they represent their needs? But also, how can young people connect with their constituents to make them see that I actually know what I'm going to be doing once you elect me?
Well, it's quite surprising to get some candidates elected. And few months ago, there was a publication of members of parliament who were mine and who have never spoken in the parliament. And that's a really big shame. If you are elected to represent your constituency, you have to speak for them. And I know there are many ways in which young people, or in which candidates, or in which members of parliament can be able to represent their constituency, including representing them in maybe smaller parliamentary standing committees. So one of the best things to get or to elect people who know what they're doing and what they're going to represent for is to not being taken away by the hype of election, because in most cases, election has to build a platform, and a platform is a party manifesto. And a party manifesto has to reflect the demands of the people. A party manifesto has to reflect what are the people's view. And in terms of people's view, these are the common mwananchi. How are you going to make sure that you improve the livelihood of the common mwananchi? How are you going to make sure that you improve healthcare facilities across your constituency? How are you going to influence the decision makers, the government, to allocate budget for rural electrification? How are you going to convince the government to allocate budget for construction of classrooms? So all these are issues that need to be enshrined into the party manifesto. And now, thumbs up to one of my mentees who is on this webinar today from Zanzibar, Musa Mbwara, whom I have trained him in quite a number of times, and I hope he's going to use those tactics and techniques to build a strong political manifesto to be able to run for his councillorship in Zanzibar. He will be running in Zanzibar for councillorship, and I'm happy to see him on this platform. So one of the things these people have to do, the young people have to do, is to really understand the demands of the people they want to represent. So if you are not able to understand, how are you going to campaign? So the effective way to be able to campaign effectively is to understand the people's issues, and the best way to do this is to do a public listening campaign before elections. Yes, a party manifesto can be developed and can be broad, but you want to localize, because every politics is local. You have to speak the language of the local people. You have to understand what is the direction, what has been issues that have been troubling them for quite some time, and you offer them policy alternatives. You offer them alternative thoughts on, if you get elected, you'll be able to get maybe 100,000 computers being installed with Wi-Fi, so that you can have coding clubs in secondary schools in your ward, for instance. So these are issues that you need to understand the needs of the community. There has to be a thorough need assessment of the community or the constituency that you want to serve. You have to establish your priorities as a candidate, be it water, education, health, agriculture, infrastructure development, whatever. And these priorities, you have to demonstrate. If you get elected, you're not going to be a government. You'll be elected in a decision or a lawmaking body. How are you going to work together with the government to be able to allocate resources to give back to the community who are taxpayers? So all these questions needs to be critically examined by a candidate before you're running. And here comes a question which you have, I think Bina has been speaking on how to mobilize resources for your campaigning. Mobilizing resources for your campaigning can be part of your long-term campaigning, because one of the things that young people fail to understand is you can't go to run for a public office in the year of election. You need to prepare yourself at least 3 years before the year of election, so that you get to understand better the people, you live with them, you understand their issues, you also participate in lobbying and advocacy through various lobbying groups, so that you can be able to see a leader who is able to deliver for them like 3 years before you want to run for public office. So this is one of the very effective way that can help you reduce your operation cost during campaigning. Because if you're able to know your constituency and being prepared 3 years before election, you can be able to understand the needs of the people. You can be able to understand how you can be the geographic location of your constituency. You'll be able to understand who are the voters, who are the registered voters, who are not registered voters, and how will you mobilize them to get them registered, be registered voters, and who are not supportive of the ideologies that you're representing. and how can you get them on board with you? So if you have enough time to prepare, maybe 3 years down the line before elections, you'll be able to reduce the cost of your operations during the campaign, because you'll be building relationship with voters. You'll be building relationships with power players and key players in the local government authority, for instance. Whether being a county government or wherever, you'll be able to interact with all the MCAs or the councillors or wherever. And in all these conversations, you can be able to understand the needs of the people, how you're going to campaign, how you're going to fundraise. So that's the most easiest way on how you can be able to understand people's issues and really represent people's issues. Because, for instance, with the ruling party today, it was announced over 4,000 people across the country are looking to get nominated for 400 positions as candidates. That's a very big number of people who wants to get elected. But it is fun and it's surprising to get to know even the people who are maybe comedians, people who used to be like maybe Zelensky, wants to run for public office. And some people are having discussions in social media. They think that maybe people are underrating the title of a member of parliament or a councillor, for instance. But I don't think that is appropriate. Everyone in the community has an equal chance and have a constitutional right to run for public office. But the question would be, is really a comedian understands the people's needs, and he can be able to represent these people's needs, and he can be able to speak about these issues during the campaign trail. And this is one among the things that I train my mentees, that if you want to be a successful candidate for your election, you really have to understand issues that you are representing. And you know, with the Generation Z and people who maybe were born after 2000 or maybe from 1990s until now, may not really understand what the party ideology means. The ideology perhaps would be get my maybe to get a better education. An ideology could be maybe to have subsidies provided for farmers, for instance. They may not really understand the center right or the leftist, the right party ideologies and everything, because these are somewhat westernized type of terminologies, whether you're a socialist or whether you're a capitalist. They may not really understand. But if you are able to speak the language of the people, all politics is local, and because all politics is local, you have to understand what the locals need, what the people are speaking about, so you can be a better mirror image of what the community really wants to get done after 5 years of your term in office.
Thank you, Fusi. We are almost running out of time. If you have any question, please type it on the chat box. And I will give the opportunity to one or two guests to ask a question. So please put your hand up if you have a question for our panelists. And we're winding up, but as we wind up, I have several questions for you and the road ahead. I'm going to begin with you, Cynthia. What are the things you're preparing to do as you begin to navigate? I want this to be an opportunity, particularly because you're Futurelect alumni. We spent quite a number of months together. What does it look like for you as you prepare for 2027?
Thank you so much, Natasha. Again, for me, it almost feels as if I am back in class, especially between Vina and Fusi. And also, as you speak about Futurelect, allow me to shout out the Eagles. They are all present, and there's nothing as humbling as that. So, who is that? Goodwill is present. Mbudi is present. Miriam is present. That is the cohort and the team that I was in. Thank you so much, guys, for tuning in. And for me, what preparing looks like, oh dear. I'll start with what Bina said. Having your core team, that is the most essential thing. I think that cannot be more emphasized. As long as you have your think tank, for starters, build a team that you know will cover everything. And having gone through the lectures and the classes for the 7, sometimes I say 9 months, because it makes sense. For the 9 months that we were present for Futurelect, you come out super ready to handle anything. I'll take us back to a session we had with Glenn Pani. Glenn Pani runs election campaigns across Africa, and he's probably one of the best. And when he was doing his lecture, one of the things we asked him is, you have no money. What next? What do I do? And the only thing he said was very simple. You just need a paper and a pen and get out of your house. That means you go door by door by door. You do not have the money. So what you do? Go door by door by door. Knock, say, hi, my name is, I am running for. How can I help you? How can I make it better? For me, I'm in Kilimani. That is my job. Currently, I am serving in the board of the Kilimani Project Foundation, turning to Kilimani Community Foundation. And I dipped myself in that because if the community is what I am after, and so the community I must work with. So that means having conversations even with the Kilimani police station, Kilimani chief, the people who work and live in Kilimani become the thing that I interact with every day. And having gone through that lesson, it taught me anything is literally possible. I remember a class we had with, what was her name? Winnie Kiza, right? Winnie Kiza from Uganda. Her lesson was very simple. What is your weakness? What is the one thing you're sure they will come for? Take that, run with it. Because after that, there's really nothing. There's absolutely nothing that they can hit you with. She chose to speak the fact that she is a single woman running and she was not married. So she said, listen, guys, I'm your wife. Yeah? Because I am your wife, can we do this? Next thing you know, she's elected. If you can learn to leverage on your weaknesses, that's it. So the minute you have a think tank that helps you figure that out, you're good to go. And there's also the hard facts, the truth of the matter, the crux of it. Someone who will tell you, you have to go to multiple places, deal with certain things, facts of the matter. Once you get into politics, truth be told, you're in East Africa, it could get very murky, it could get dirty. You need someone to come and hold you and tell you, it will get bad. And then what do we do? Have a strategist. So for me, that is the things I'm putting together. And if there's anyone in this call who thinks about running and has not figured out how to get onto Futurelect, if there's a chance, please get on it. I don't know how to tell you that, but that's it. So
we didn't pay her to say that, I promise.
For me, it purely what it did for me is the fears that I had as someone who had no experience, no connection with anything. It gave me the confidence to know that I can do it. And when someone asks, what's your why? And I'm like, because it's my calling. It's what I want to do. So my why, my plan of action is to ensure that I take the steps that I was taken through, make sure that I am ready for the elections, have a clear vision of what it is that I want to gain, have my think tank ready, have my truth tellers ready, have people who can project the future for me, and to have a fundraising team as well, so that I know how my ship is going to look like. And I love the question that you asked. I think either Fusi or I think it was Fusi about getting into parliament without a plan. I think it's very possible for you to have a plan because whichever agenda you have for you, it's the agenda of the community. It's not the other way around. It's what does the community need? So then it's for you to fuse between what the community needs and what your JD reads. You fuse that, you're good to go. You have nothing to worry about. You don't know, what am I supposed to do? You know what you're supposed to do. Those are the things you set up at the very core of when you start figuring out whether you're running or not. And for me, those are the things that I care about. So when you ask what am I preparing for? That is what I am preparing for. That is how it looks like. It looks like campaign, but on a different level. It's, as Bina has said, WhatsApp groups, Facebook, chamas, that is what it looks like. It's unconventional. And in Kenya, it's riding the wave. And it's knowing this is me, this is who I am, guys. Take me as I am. My weaknesses, my strengths. I am you, you are me. Let's make Kenya better. So that is what it looks like, getting ready.
Thank you so much. Bina, before I get to my final question for you, there's a question here from Kanda Brian. And he asks, I'm quite interested in what you think about affirmative action slots. Do you think there are avenues that the youth could use and capitalize on since they have less muscles? Or I think here what they meant is that there's less sort of competition, or maybe that's a perception here, to contend. And Kanda gives an example of Bomet Toto, who triumphed through an affirmative action post. I'd love to hear your thoughts before I get to my final question for you. And please let me know if there are questions. I can't see any hands up. So yes, I'll go to my final question for Bina.
Yeah, certainly, because number one, even the thinking behind the affirmative action sets is the fact that when you talk about leadership, diversity is important. Representation is important, so that people's views, people's needs are centered when it comes to leadership priorities. So certainly the affirmative sets have been very instrumental in representation, increasing the number of young women who engage in political processes. Why am I saying that? And I'll tell you, I mean, I was crunching the numbers from the last election and the other election. And what shocked me was the fact that in counties like Kajiado, they didn't elect any woman except the woman representative. Yeah. We have counties that did not elect any woman except the woman representative seat only. What does that mean when it comes to diversity of thoughts? When it comes to the needs of the bulk of the citizens, who majority are women and children in communities? How do you center their needs? How do you center their priorities? So it's important, number one, to not only the affirmative seat, but equip yourself enough to show up to win. You know, so you don't, like the posturing is, I am running to win. That should be the posturing. I am running to win. If you happen to get nominated, then you get to use that opportunity and steward it very well, because we are stewards of the opportunities that we have in our lives, whether it's work, whether it's a political seat, whether it's children, we are stewards. So then steward the position you have with wisdom. So if you get nominated, yes. But then there are several other opportunities, even within the constituency. You know, sometimes I ask even the women political mobilizers that I work with, and I even ask them, okay, well, you did not even run for office, why didn't you apply to sit in the CDF committee? Because you're supposed to apply. That's an opportunity. You would have been there deciding that the bursaries go to the right students who are actually needy. But we are waiting to run for office. And we do apply to sit in the CDF committee. Why didn't you apply to be the fund manager and you're a professional in the community? You're a professional. You can apply to be the fund manager for the CDF committee. That's another opportunity. But it slides, you know. Sometimes people don't even know that we can apply to sit in the committee. They always feel like, oh, people are handpicked. Let me tell you, in as much as sometimes people can be handpicked, you can challenge that process, because there's a process to constituting the committee. So you can actually challenge it and say, why is it that we have only men seated in this CDF committee? How did you nominate this man? What was the procedure? Were interviews done? You have a right to challenge it, because this is a public office. Yeah, so you have a right to challenge it. So we have opportunities that sometimes we don't tap into. Except I was grounded in the community. I had never even used to know the Nyumba Kumi chairmanship. You actually have to be voted for. There's a time, I think last year, but when I attended the Nyumba Kumi election, I have never seen those many people line up. And I said, oh my goodness, like, how are you having different people with their people lined up? Like, you can even see this one with a short line should just go home, because clearly this one is going to take it. But what am I saying? What I'm saying is, even that Nyumba Kumi chairmanship, do you know half the time when we go to report cases of gender-based violence to the chief, the first question is, who's your Nyumba Kumi chairperson? They've not brought this case, have you told them? Because the house you're saying is within their jurisdiction, you know, it's within their mandate, like the 10 houses that's supposed to man, or the 10 units that they're supposed to man. Then all of a sudden you realize, oh my God, my chairperson is this important. Half the people, half the young people. Cynthia, who's your Nyumba Kumi chairperson? Do you know them? You see. And you want them to vote for you. You see what I mean? That's what leadership starts there. You have to know your Nyumba Kumi chairperson because all the areas have that. So sometimes I think it's to map out the leadership opportunities within the community and getting to know the influence people have. You know, sometimes you might think it's just the MCA, but then you look at the security ecosystem and you realize, oh my God, in the security meetings, the chief sits there, the DO sits there, and the Nyumba Kumi people sits there. They know all the kids who are thugs in that community. They're the ones who are trying to ensure that even when opportunities are being handed out by the MCA, they call the Nyumba Kumi leaders and tell them, please map out for me, how many Form 4 leavers do we have in your area? How many do we have? Then you quickly realize they're making decisions that are also affecting you. Yeah. So I think for me, that is also very key. But posturing, run to win. Be very intentional with how you're organizing. Start counting days to the election. Right now, we have less than 700 days to the election. Stop saying we have 1 year and a half. If you start saying 1 year and a half, it will look like very many months. We have less than 700 days to the election. Every day I subtract 1 day and I'm like, oh my God, we're almost gonna be at 600 days. We're almost going to be at 500 days. Then when you work backwards, you're thinking, what can I do? And I think lastly, on what Cynthia was saying, I think I remember, of course, I never used to have a car while campaigning, but one of the things that I did heavily when months to the election as well was there were mornings I used to wake up at 4:30 and I would go to the stage because the guys who are going to the market, the guys who are going to industrial area, they are waiting for cheap matatu transportation. They are all at the stages in the morning because between 5 to 6, public transport is very, very cheap. Then from 6, it shoots up double, like 100 or 120, depending on your community. But I knew in the morning, there's so many guys, like all the guys are gonna come with fresh produce for their kiosks. They have to go to Marikiti, they have to go to Mudurwa, those are areas in Nairobi. They have to go very early in the morning. And I used to target them there. And that's also when I used to take advantage of my neighbors. I'm like, you might not have money to support my campaign, but you can escort me to the stage tomorrow morning. Even my uncles, I'm like, you can be part of the security team because walking out of the house at 4:30 is insane. You know, for majority of the men who enter into the campaign trail, they don't already fear that they're going to be raped in the campaign trail by the time they're done with their campaign. But for women, that's a reality. That's a reality. I was stripped in a political rally one time. It's a reality. Anything could have happened to me that particular day. I went to report the case. They pushed back on the case. They said, I was not ready. I didn't have a thick skin. Your life is on the line and someone is telling you you don't have a thick skin. That is the cost of participating in political processes. So there's still many ways that people can plug in and support your campaign, because at the end of the day, if you let the challenges buy you, it's like it's like letting the challenges define your future. It's like letting the challenges define the quality of your future, because politics affects even the meal you're going to have on the table today, what hair you're going to wear, what school you're going to take your kids, whether you're going to leave that community or not. And I'm like, despite the challenges, majority of us have to enter the game so that we normalize what good leadership looks like. We can't leave this space for just politicians with no vision. That is why if you're not running for office, please support the guys who are running for office. And I think, Natasha, you wanted to ask me whether I'm going to run. My biggest role in 2027 will be to, number one, support those who are running for office by investing in the ecosystem that supports them. Like I said, a candidate is an institution. If we can pair Cynthia with some of the mobilizers that we work with, if we can think through her communication strategy, if we can give her some of our WhatsApp admins.
You're not telling me what I want to hear.
If we can do that, so I'm very keen on that, because like I said, we've been crunching the numbers, Natasha, yes. And you know that in the last election we had 16,100 candidates on the ballot from the presidency to the MCA. Only 2,000 were women, and in this whole country, in Kenya, we only have 20 young women who are elected across all the positions, whether it was Toto, who was elected for woman representative, whether it is the Kirinyaga women rep, then we have the other MCAs, but we only have 20. Yet the MCA seats are 1,450. So we still have a long work work ahead of us. And I think I want to invest more in that. Yeah.
Let's take this conversation offline, Bina.
Okay.
That answer. I want to conclude this webinar with Jacob. Jacob, you are currently on the ground. Again, I want to say a huge thank you because you're making time for this. The campaign trail is a very brutal trail. I just need 2 insights on what this experience has been for you. Because again, you're doing an incredible job, and I am rooting for you, as you well know.
Thank you, Natasha. Sorry again. I became a bit unavailable back there. So I need to say, fortunately for me, I've been in a campaign trail before, from my university days all the way to where I am now. I've been in campaigns before, but every campaign comes with its own adrenaline drive, an adrenaline, hype, because it's not possible for you to run a campaign the way you ran the last one. It's always something has to show up new energy, new ideas, new dynamics. And the campaign trail is always challenging in that sense. In my case, I'm actually running for 2 elections. I'm running to sit on the Central Executive Committee of our ruling party. That's chaired by the president and has about 11 people in the whole country. So I'm running to be there. Then I'm running for the constituency member of parliament in my constituency to also be a member of parliament to represent my people. Sometimes this is it has to come with clarity of what you're doing and when you're doing it, but also clarity of which resources you need and how you're going to divest them. Because if you do not think about yourself as a person that does not have everything going for you, you might see a lot of time present, you might see a lot of room for manufacturing what you're thinking of, and then you run out of time, you run out of room, and you also run out of faith from your own people. So all these things are very important. In my experience, in the recent past, rural populations like a lot of new things, a lot of something they have never seen, while urban populations like a lot of challenging messaging. Can you be daring? Can you be inspiring? And young people in our generation want to identify with a candidate that does not seem to respect their political affiliation more than young people's generational needs. If you brand as a candidate that will insist on what your generation is about, then you have the support of your generation. And what I have also experienced is that it doesn't matter which political party you're running under. If you're running with the right tone, with the right issues on your tongue, everyone's going to actually listen to you and say, hold on, I think this is a person that might change things from inside, or this is a person that we need in case UDA wins or in case the NRM wins in Uganda or CCM. This fella might be the one that can change if we want to change something from inside. The final thing is that you need to walk along with your generation. Sometimes people undermine the capacity of friend networks to help you in a political race. For us, in my experience, it's been necessary in every election to convene your friends, the people that say they want the best for you, the people that say they support you, they believe in you. You convene them in a meeting, small funded, and you'll tell them, I'm running for this. To have them invest their own money, their own strengths and time, to show them how they can help you beyond just giving you money is extremely important for young people. And that invites people to now recognize that, oh, if I am actually showing support for you on my WhatsApp status or on my Instagram or on my Twitter account once a week or twice a week, that has an effect on the ground. And that is also important. So the last point I had to make is this: avoid being in unnecessary wars. Everything is a war in political elections. And very many times you start wars that you don't need to be a part of. You'd find that suddenly there is a war that is related perhaps to a particular contract that someone got, and you don't know the details, but it's against your opponent. So you bring it up very strongly, and then you run out of ways to explain what you're saying. Then people will look at you as a blackmailer or as someone that's not serious. That's the other thing. I think, in my experience, the most powerful tool in rural areas is media. And by media, I mean local media, radio stations. The villagers don't watch TV, but they'll listen to all their radios. If you can find a way to penetrate radio programming, and be the voice that's new, that's fresh, but also that brings all those ideas, that's a rural plus. In the urban centers, it's becoming too crowded on social media for a strategy. So what's usually better is for your social media to be about how you are meeting people, not what you are saying you want to be voted for. For example, if every time we see a post about you, it's listening to a community fella telling you their problems and you responding, that becomes content people want to watch or want to share. So becoming creative in crowded places is very important. So you can all fit in, wear your own shoe size where necessary. So that's about it. The final thing I'll talk about, the real final one now, is about money. Okay. Look, if I'll just put it this way: a weakness well understood can become a strength. If one knows that I do not have the money or half the money that the incumbent member of parliament has, then choosing to run an election that projects money will be a loss before you start the race itself. You could utilize the small resources to have to say, okay, let me go heavy on visibility, while on all other issues, I am going a little lower because of my resources. And then the visibility is what I ride on to explain myself and meet the people. Let me embed myself among the people. Your campaign starts 7 a.m. in the morning at the market, greeting the women, and then it closes in the afternoon in the drinking centers, and you sit and drink with them. These small but personalized things that entrench you as part of the community can engender the community towards you in ways that many people do not see easily through election campaigns. And you don't have to do rallies as a young person, because rallies collect the community. If you have a strategy on the basis of how many villages, how many homesteads per village I can visit in 12 hours of a day, that might be a better way to go about the expenses than to say you want to call everyone in rallies. You could say, no, let me just greet everyone 4 times by the time this this race is done. And you look at your timetable, you create that. So someone has seen me 5 times at their doorstep, just requesting them for their vote and telling them how it is good to see them again. And if you're lucky to remember their names more often than not, people can get personalized to you even when the pump is somewhere else. And that's just how it goes. You have to play to your strengths, and where you understand your weaknesses very well, that can play for you as a strength. Thank you.
Thank you so much. That's a wonderful way to end. There are so many things that we can take home from this. We have gone over time. Unfortunately, I see some questions we are unable to answer them. I want to thank you for staying with us till the very end. I need you to do 2 things for me. One, follow us on Futurelect East Africa across all our platforms and Futurelect. Second, we currently have applications for women in public office South Africa. We are going to put it on the chat box. If you're interested in applying, please do so and share within your networks. But most importantly and finally, if you're thinking about running, the best time to campaign and begin was yesterday. The next best time is today. I am wishing you well. We believe in you, and we believe in a better country and continent for ourselves. Thank you from me in Nairobi, Kenya, and from my colleagues across the continent. Thank you, and have a lovely evening. Thank you to my panelists, Cynthia Mwangi, Frederick Fusi, Jacob Eyeru, who's on the campaign trail in Kampala, Uganda, Frederick Fusi, who's in Tanzania, and Bina, who's in Nairobi, Cynthia, who's also in Nairobi. Thank you, and have a lovely evening. Thank you so much.